Hi everybody, welcome to More Than a Woman podcast. I'm Zizi, your host, founder of Awareness Through Fashion UK. I'm going to let the panel members introduce themselves first before we go into our topic of discussion today. So ladies.
Hi guys, my name is Keely and I am the founder of Atum.
Hi, I'm Kush. I'm the founder of Essentials from Kush and also the vice chair of OBU Birmingham.
Hi, I'm Divine Cosmic Mind and I'm the founder of my app Professional Services.
Thank you very much, ladies. Can I thank the audience members today for tuning in as well on this Sunday? Thank you very much for being with us today. Our topic of discussion will be Black trauma porn. I'm going to go with a definition first of all before we get into the discussion. So trauma porn is written, photographed or filmed media which exploits traumatic moments of adversity to generate buzz, notoriety or media attention for perverse fascination with other people's suffering. Recently, trauma porn on social media depicting Black people, and people of color being brutalized, shot or killed has been popularized. So our question today that we're going to start off with is, do we agree with the definition or term of Black trauma porn? It's open for discussion, ladies.
Yeah, I think that it references the sensation, while studies have shown that porn in itself obviously gives people a heightened sensation and it can be addictive. So I feel like there is, because we live in a technological world and quite a virtual world at the moment, there is this addiction to record everything, pass on videos, pass on pictures and images. That's kind of the culture that we're living in at the moment. And I think if you look at porn from a sexual aspect, I guess, it's a similar kind of, well, it's the same thing really, you know, imagery, videos, those type of things. So I think the reference of it is the sensation that it gives you when you are constantly doing that thing, and the way it makes you feel when you're constantly looking at these images and passing it on and sharing. You think, well, I suppose some people think they're sharing information and that's not necessarily so, but having these conversations and dialogues about something traumatic, I would say that it is the correct terminology for it.
So do we feel like, as Black people, we've now got a terminology saying Black trauma porn? Is there white trauma porn? So are we fine with actually defining a term for Black trauma porn instead of it?
Personally, I wouldn't say there's us being fine with it, but how many times do you see imagery in the media and on social media and within, you know, WhatsApp groups or anywhere else really, where people are having discussions about a group of people or a race of people that are constantly being murdered, slaughtered, harmed, or verbally or physically abused in some way based upon their colour, and that's just going to happen in the white community. So I think that it would be very hard pressed to find another terminology, but not to say it's right or wrong, but to say that it's understandable why it's been labelled as such.
Okay. Yeah, I think the questions. Sorry, Posh. I think that the term is probably, because it's quite new, I think it is misleading. I think even with advertising for this and promo work for this, people have come back to me and, you know, thought it was something to do, you know, with sexuality or something sexual just because of the term porn in it. But you know, like you said, when we break down, you know, how watching porn makes you feel and that sensationalized and that feeling and that need to watch more of it, I think when we break that down and then we associate that with watching trauma videos, you can definitely see why the term is appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely when you break down the definition, but then I've got two questions. Number one, when people are actually sharing the content, what they're sharing, are they aware that because obviously if we're comparing it to sexualized porn, and obviously, you know, we can kind of get the gist of maybe the emotion or the feeling that they perhaps could be getting. But what is the emotion? And do you think people are even aware of the emotion that it's triggering in their brain for them? Would you be able to say that? Because I feel like a person that shares these videos or shares this kind of content, you'd have to talk to them and ask them what is it that they feel when they're sharing these kind of images and videos. The second thing was,
sorry, go on.
Sorry, the second thing was when we was talking about like why is that, did you say like do you think that they could be the terminology white porn trauma, or I can't remember exactly what you said.
Yeah, white trauma porn.
Yeah. I think it kind of depends also on maybe your circle, because I don't really have that many white people on my social media platforms. So technically, if my community and my circle is not of any other ethnicity, could that be, I know that there's definitely an agenda and a push for Black people, but I'm just saying, if you're not in certain circles, would you see it anyway?
I think to answer the second point, I think we're now talking about black trauma porn, and trauma is linked to the visually keep seeing repeatedly images that are traumatic against us. So to answer the second part of your question, I think irrespective of whether we were we had a circle of, you know, white friends or people that associated heavily with white people, I don't think it would make a difference personally, because we see it on the news. They actually take time to show these videos on the news. They actually take time to show these videos in mainstream media. So this is not just literally about, just we're spreading it. We're getting it from all angles regardless. And those aspects of it, we would say, I think we would be hard pressed, but it would be very difficult to say that we would be able to, even if we was in that circle, to see the exact same imagery as what we see within our community.
No, we definitely wouldn't see the exact same imagery. I was just, because Zizi brought up the opposite, I was thinking, but if you're not in a same space, would you even be drawn attention to? Would you even, and because we're going through so much as a people, have you even got time to be looking at what other races are going through anyway? Because I don't watch news. I haven't watched the news for a very long time, because I just always feel like it's giving false information. It tells you whatever it wants to tell you. So I wouldn't even know if they put it on the news, because I don't watch it.
And I think off the back of that, the news is on social media. So a lot of these clips anyway, regardless of, I don't watch the news, but I still see it on social media, because a lot of these images that are being reported in mainstream news still get posted on social media. People will literally sit and watch news segments and video it and post it. So we do see, as much as we don't,
so it's there. It's there. It's just that, and you're saying it doesn't really matter about your circle. It's just if you're in one hand of the spectrum and another hand of the spectrum, you're basically saying there's trauma in both spectrums. Basically, it's just more heightened for us at the moment.
Well,
I'm not saying there is trauma in both spectrums. I'm just saying I'm not aware of it. I'm just saying.
It's not something that you've heard of or you see on a regular basis then, in terms of aspects. Okay.
Even if they got a video of somebody killing, slaughtering in the same way that they do us, a white person, would they actually post that, and would that be in the mainstream media in the same way and vigorously and frequent as it is with us?
But remember, we're going off of the definition. It's the definition that we're trying to establish. Do we agree with it? So that your point still stands, Tash. It's there.
my point sounds, my point was, my original point, and what I was responding to was what Keely was saying off the back of her points. But I think my initial point is the description and the reason for what it means fitting for exactly its purpose. Whether I believe it's right or wrong, I understand why it has that label when you align it to those other things. And I think another point Keely made about the conscious level, like are people actually aware when they're doing these things? When you're addicted to something, or it's an addiction, so sometimes you're not actually fully conscious that you keep doing this thing. And I think after a while, some people who are self-aware or realizing that things, it doesn't matter what it might be, even if it's something like this, has an effect on their emotions or feelings, or actually I don't feel quite good because I keep seeing these things, they start to remove themselves from it. So I do think that, because again, going back to what I said about that, we're in a technological age and era, I think it's become the norm to be passing on videos and talking about these things and reading and seeing these images, so that people, it's just become second nature now. And I don't think everybody is conscious of it, that it gives them that, it's an addiction at the end of the day of doing it.
I definitely agree with the definition. I do feel like it needs to be shortened to be like, usually definitions aren't as long. So as long as if you break down the definition, it's definitely understood. But as Kush was saying, it can sound like it's misleading. So there needs to be like a shortened version of it, definitely.
Because the porn aspect, anybody will automatically think about sexualization first. More than
some people could become offended by that, especially considering their intention behind sharing them. So, as like Tasha was saying, like people might not associate, or might not stop and think about how am I feeling the moment I'm sending this? How is a person viewing this going to be feeling? It might be for them a cause of, we need to keep things aware. We need to show people what's happening. You know what I mean? So their intention might be to provide evidence, to, to bring awareness. So there is that dilemma between, if we don't see it, how do we claim justice for something, or how do we, speak out against something? But then if we're not seeing it, how are we going to become aware? So it's that balance, you know what I mean? It's that balance. There needs to be an element of consciously wanting to watch it. You know what I mean? I think when you get into a position where it's just throwing at you, or like I said, you put on the news and they might say something like, these images might be disturbing, but that's such a broad term, you know what I mean? And then you don't know what you're going to be seeing. So I think there's elements of being, not being able to prepare yourself to see certain things, or things should come with warnings or something. So I think there's ways of preparing yourself, or being able to monitor what you're able to see, or what's displayed. Going back to another point about white trauma porn, I feel like, going back to what Tasha said, it's like, I don't feel like, I think there's an element of protection when it comes to other communities as well, whereas they wouldn't be showing the same things over and over again, because they are aware of how distressing things can be. Even things with animals, you know what I mean? They sometimes blur out, or things like that. So the media, or the people that are showing these things on the mainstream level, are aware that imagery causes, psychological effect. It just depends on, who it's affecting.
Okay, well, that kind of leads into the next question regarding the topic. Has it become normalised for Black people seeing each other being humiliated, get beaten and killed, making it easier for some of us to watch and share this kind of content around our communities and our peers?
I definitely
think it's getting easier.
100%, because look how many hundreds of years it's been going on for. We've already been watching each other be traumatized through slavery, be raped, whether that be man or woman. Do you know what I mean? The treatment of children, and everything wasn't like behind closed doors. Everything was done publicly. So that public humiliation and put on a public platform element of it is technically the same. It's just on social media, but the public element is definitely the same. So the same things that we're video recording were the same things that our ancestors and our predecessors were seeing back then. Now it's just been recorded so more people can see it rather than that initial group.
So anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking that it is just normalized now. Everything, it's natural. It's unnatural, but it's natural because in the sense of, well, it's kind of like an expectation that, we've become desensitized to it, you know, to a point, because it's so frequent. And even if you go back to the George Floyd case recently, whilst they're issuing the verdict, another person's being shot dead at the same time as the verdict is happening. So there's again police brutality happening, which is so ironic.
She froze.
Yeah.
I don't think we are desensitized to it. I know I personally am not desensitized. And I mean, I think people say they're desensitized, but still will share a video and be like, yo, that made me angry, you know, or you know what I mean? So they say they're desensitized.
That is
sorry, Tash, you froze there a second. Sorry.
Oh, could you hear me? Sorry.
Hear you now.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah. What
people may not say, people feel like they're desensitized. You know what I mean? But I think again, it's not wanting to show that vulnerability, which is a big element in our community across many spheres, not just within watching this. So you say it don't bother you, but then, you know, you send it on and you get angry because as you're watching it, your heart's beating fast and your hands are sweaty. And the next probably white person you see, you feel like you want to screw on them. That's not being desensitized. You know what I mean? Laying in your bed and having an image repeat over and over in your head. You know what I mean? Even that feeling of that is showing that you're not desensitized because it's still, you know what I mean? So I think we like to say we are, but I definitely don't think we are.
When I say desensitized, I'm talking about it's normal now to see it happening. So the physiological effects, as you've just described them, you know, the anxiety, the anger and all of that, that is the effects of actually watching the video and seeing somebody look like you being hurt and harmed. But essentially the expectation, because really we should be, even the thought of this even coming into the domain should be an outrage. Like we should literally be like, there is no way on earth that's, you know, like it's just so alien to us. It's not alien to us. It's literally like, oh, another one, you know? And that's what I mean about desensitization, and that, to make us seem lesser than through imagery is frequently pushing out these images. Now, a lot of the images that come out, especially when it's police brutality first, are the cams that they wear. I forgot what they call them. You know, body cams, that's it. So a lot of these, we're seeing this straight away. A body cam video instantly being sent out before any investigations taken place, before they've even done anything. We're getting the image of the body cam. So, you know, it's literally like, you know what, we're not even going to let them breathe. You can have this verdict for George Floyd because we're actually going to give you something else at the same time, which is exactly literally like what happened to George Floyd a year ago. So this is what I'm saying about desensitization, because to me, worldwide, the whole diaspora should be, this is so alien to us. This is, you know, that it's unacceptable, and we actually are going to do something about it together as a collective straight away, as soon as we hear, not even see, as soon as we hear. But because we're so used to it now, it's more like, well, okay, now it's another one, and now through the same process and the same feelings and the same emotions again. So I get what you're saying, Coach, but that's the physiology of what happens once you've witnessed it.
Mm.
But essentially, it's so frequent that now there is an expectation that we're always going to be hearing about this, and that, you know, it's like we're being hunted down in some way.
Yeah, that's true. But then what happens if we don't have access to this imagery? Because there's times where, especially like on Facebook, I see posts from like, say, countries like South America, where there's been like a traumatizing event, there's been an incident of police brutality, and then I guess this side of the world has been accused of not caring, not protesting, not speaking out. And then the question is, well, how are we seeing it? How are we made to know that these incidents are happening, you know, outside of, you know, the Americas and over here, if we don't have like the visual content to show it? So how do we find that balance between knowing something's going on, being provided with information, but then not seeing it? No, because
I know you're talking about like the other side of the world, but even if we don't see what's happening on the other side of the world, we have enough imagery to see what's going on our side of the world. And even when we see that, we don't react enough, we don't do anything. It's like we react once every 10 years. Because the last time that there was a riot or a kickoff was the 2011 riots. You know, now it's 2020, 2021. So are we going to just, and in that 10-year period, I know that we've seen, you know, more than enough traumatic videos that have been shared on via WhatsApp, social media, whatever you name it. Or even if you haven't seen it, it's being talked about. Or I don't watch the news, but people are saying, you know, that it's on the news. We don't react to what's going on in our own backyard. So then I don't understand why we would try and be defensive when people say, oh, we don't care about our side of the world. And we say, well, we don't know what's going on because we haven't seen it, but we haven't reacted to the things that are happening on the bottom of your road.
Right.
Yeah, I do also think that we knew these things were going on even when there weren't cameras around. So I think the excuse of, oh, well, if somebody doesn't, it's so easy for people to whip out a camera now rather than actually let's try and help, or you know, try and help a situation or see if we can prevent things from escalating. Let's take out the camera. Whereas we knew these things were happening in America and over here pre having this smartphones and technology. We knew all of this, and this, I mean, so I don't think us saying that technology moving forward is now a reason for us not to gain information or evidence, because I know that cases are still being escalated. I think there was a case recently where a young guy was taken into police custody. I think it was in Wales, and he was taken into police custody. And when they released him, he was like battered and bruised, basically. And then he died. Subsequently, not long after that, he died. There's no cameras, but people are out protesting. There's no video footage of what happened, but people are actually screaming out and saying this is an injustice. So I think, and there's another girl that's currently in prison at the moment, and her family are fighting for her because they're saying she was wrongly sentenced, basically, because she was in a self-defense situation, but the police didn't want to hear. So all the injustice that went on with her, I think there was no video footage. There was no, and this happened over here, and their family are still fighting for her to be free. So I'm just saying that, yeah, we can say, well, are we really going to get evidence for this, that, the other? But at the same time, investigations can happen and we can still do things. We still have a voice and we still have power to be able to make change if we want to, of course, with or without constantly seeing the images. And I'm not saying that we don't, by the way, I'm not saying that we don't need to see the images, or that the images don't help escalate a situation, meaning the video. I'm just saying that what Kush said before about balance is very important.
We definitely do need.
Can we just cut there? Sorry, ladies. Sorry, ladies. We need to take a break, 10-minute break, and we'll be back shortly. Thank you very much.
Okay, see you.
See you in a sec. 10-minute break, guys.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Did you know that barbers need more training hours to start working than police do? That would be funny if it wasn't true. Are you stunned? I was. What kind of world do we live in when you need more training time to use a curling iron than to use a gun? 6 years ago, I made a video called Same Story. I mean, the names in the cities changed, but it's the same story. They say he was unarmed, not a gun or a knife, yet the cop felt it right to end his life. That was 6 years ago. And today, it's the same story. I'm no prophet, Nostradamus, nor did I make a gamble. I just know these reruns will keep happening because the world is stuck on the same channel. I don't need to see Annalise and How to Get Away with Murder because cops do that every day. Just think about the countless people who don't make it home, who aren't known because they weren't lucky enough to have those crimes recorded with an iPhone. Listen, we can march, protest, pray, and post, and that's good, we should. But it won't solve this. Racism runs deep. Just Google the dog test. This is gonna keep happening until we realize there's no place for bad apples in a career that's life or death. Chris Rock said it best. That's like an airline saying, some of our pilots like to land, but some of the bad apples, they like to crash, and that's something we just have to accept. No, so ain't no moving on until we get caring people with quality training wearing these blue uniforms. Don't you get it? The country of Finland went from the bottom in education to the top within a few years. Want to know how they did it? They made teaching a prestigious career. They said you have to have a master's degree to be a teacher. Well, we must do the same thing here. Being a cop is not a prestigious career. That's clear, and I don't mean to be a cynic, but a cop told me once that you get officer of the month if you write the most tickets. To all the police out there, listen, you have the right to remain silent for 1 minute. Give me your undivided, just for this part. Do not let the metal in that badge block the energy of your heart. I know your world is gloomy. You see people at their ugliest, so I imagine it is hard to see their beauty. The only problem is, this is your duty. You signed up for this job, and out of respect, you do not get to step on the necks, nor the human rights of the people you swore to protect. Liberty and justice for all means every color. There's no escaping it, no running away from it. If a person's skin is seen as a weapon, they will always be considered armed and extremely dangerous. So please, be tough on crime, but also be a decent human being. And if you can't, just quit, because you are not what we need. All we want to do is breathe. And if you still can't empathize, ask yourself this question. What if it was you on the other side?
Hi, and we're back. All the ladies here?
Yeah, back.
We're back.
The video is something else, boy, I tell you. That every time I see that video, it just, you know.
Which video?
The video that we just watched.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, audience, for tuning back in with us. Sorry, we had to take a break. We're still on Black trauma porn, so we'll go right back into it. We're going to focus on PTSD and depression in the Black community due to Black trauma porn. So 1 in 3 adults encountered a traumatic event. Watching these videos of trauma are causing PTSD and depression within the Black community. Trauma porn has been labelled as a way of awareness. How do we tackle the effects of these injustices we witness if sharing trauma porn is not the answer? Does anybody want to start?
I mean, I think one of the issues that we have as a community is we're very reactionary. So we shouldn't really take or see the video to then decide that we're going to go and protest or demand justice. This should be something that's constantly happening. You know, we should be organized enough to constantly be having campaigns, to constantly be challenging police brutality, to constantly be doing these things. But I think we get into this circle where, because we're not seeing it, we're thinking it's not happening. You know what I mean? It's almost like we need these videos in some respect to remind us that, you know, the oppression's still going on. You know what I mean? There's still injustices going on, which is really unfortunate. But I mean, if we were of the mindset where, like I say, we know that even if we're not seeing it, it's happening. We know even if we're not seeing statistics about our children in school, we know that there's, you know, systematic injustice. We know all these things. So I think if we were constantly working towards this, organize ourselves, petitioning in whatever, you know, whatever that may look like, then we wouldn't be so reliant upon needing to see imagery to remind us, or to then activate us and encourage us to then, you know, respond to whatever we're seeing.
Is there an unbiasedness as well with the trauma porn? Because for one instance, I witnessed a video going around the other day. I think a black guy raped a young girl, and they were torturing him, but the video circulated on WhatsApp and everybody was in agreement to share it because it's rape. Are we on an unbiased or an unbalanced thing determined on the level of the content of trauma porn? Because you're still saying at the end of the day, even though it's labelled as awareness, sharing these videos, it's a decision thing, it's a choice thing to kind of share these videos out there, which is now affecting people's mental health. Is there a level of it though, when it comes to things like rape, we're all for it, but brutality, it's like, where do we go from there in terms of how do we find other things, other ways? Go on, sorry.
I don't want to see either. Like,
you don't want to see either, exactly.
If the man has raped a woman, or what did you say, a young girl?
Raped a young girl, yes.
I don't know about
underage.
So if a man has raped a young girl, I don't feel like we need to be hearing it either. I just feel like we should be confident enough within our community to know that it got dealt with.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We just need to know it got dealt with.
I think when I see videos, so when I see videos, for example, of, say, I don't know, a black person beating up a white person or retaliating, and this white person might be having the crap beaten out of them, like, you know, I get joy from watching those things. I ain't gonna, when I watch them, it kind of balances out. Like, it feels like, yeah, finally we're getting one back up, and I watch it over and over and over and over again. So, you know, that's just the way that, you know, it's almost like balances out. It's almost like one for the win, finally.
You know what I mean? So, just sweet.
So I think it's the intention behind, you know, the content that you're seeing. So I might send out a video like the one that I described as a way of, you know what I mean? It's all good. You know, we're still getting our own back some way, as a way to kind of, like I said, balance out some of that. So no, like Keely said, I would like the confident to know that even without us seeing this man being stoned to death or whatever that is happening, but I feel like there's still some elements of, like I say, seeing the resistance, seeing the retaliation, seeing the get back. I think, you know, I have no problem seeing those things personally, you know what I mean? So
how do we deal with the effects on the mental health side of things, though, of our community witnessing these type of videos on a regular basis? It's now leading to certain types of trending things like gun crime and knife crime as well amongst the youth. So are there any other ways that we can implement this awareness instead of sharing videos, or is this technology the only thing that we're going to rely on? Or
well, things like what we're doing now is a way to actually share information and have these conversations and spread awareness. And people use social media and you know, other ways to communicate without sending imagery, and having a conversation and a dialogue, whether that be you're in a group or whatever that might be. And there's other means and ways that we can do this. I think mindfulness is important as well, and really checking your emotions and how that makes you feel, and recognizing as well that sometimes we may be feeling a certain way and not realizing it, and that emotion and feeling can be transferred onto other people. So when we're talking, you made a valid point about, you know, the youth and things that are happening at the moment with the knife crime situation, which is a massive thing across the UK. It's not just a London or Birmingham situation. And I think that is about them devaluing themselves. That is about, it's easy for me. I know there's all the gang situation and postcode wars and all of that, and it's a little bit deeper. But also, if you're constantly knowing of and seeing imagery and hearing of people just, you know, getting killed or murdered or knifed or whatever, it's nothing to, it becomes nothing, and you become fearless to that. So I think it's really important, you know, for parents as well to recognize when they're actually doing it and when they're involved in it, because obviously if your children are around that and you're constantly talking about it or you're constantly sharing these things, they're going to sense and pick up on these things as well. The difficulty that we have with Black trauma porn, it's not censored. So as much as, you know, there's certain things that, you know, people's pages get locked down for less. Black people's pages, social media pages get locked down just for speaking truth to power. But yeah, people can be mocking us and laughing. I mean, you get white people actually reenacting the George Floyd knee on the neck situation and posting it. So but that will never be taken down. And the vast majority of videos that are churned out are never censored or taken down by the powers that be or those that run social media network. So I do think it's a very difficult to manage because it hits us from every angle possible. But all you can do is manage and maintain yourself and your household and you know those that you interact with. It starts with you first. So if you recognize and feel that, you know what, it's getting too much now, I'm doing this too much, or try and remove yourself. What I actually do now is I'll see something, and then within the first second I just scroll off. I don't even
just the whole setup, the whole build up to it, the anticipation of it.
So I know that
what Tash was saying, like it practically starts from within the home, especially like I'm sure we've all experienced this growing up, and we might have done it with our own children. When we have, you know, young children, we're already teaching them, you know, you have to work 10 times harder, you have to do your schoolwork, you have to make sure that you know you're more well behaved, because even if you're acting up or playing about the same level as, you know, maybe some of your white friends, you're always going to be the one stands out. We're already teaching them that society sees them less than normal. That's before they've even watched the videos. And then seeing how society or how society treats us on top of how we treat each other. We've already started, and then we're wondering why, you know, we're having these big major mental health breakdowns because we've been patterning this from young and not realizing it. We're thinking we're preparing our youth, you know what I mean, for the outside world from young, when sometimes, depending on how your child's mindset is, we're breaking them down.
Definitely. It's more of a breakdown. It's more of a force-fed breakdown of your mind as well, because if they're, as you said, Tash, these things don't get censored enough. So they're so out there, they're so reachable, they're so tangible, even for the youth. They can log on to anything right now and see these things as clear as day. Like, is it more of a thing that they're literally trying to force-fed this into the Black community more than any other communities as a way of keeping us down and another form of oppression?
If you have
even entertained by it as well.
If you keep pushing, it's not just about ourselves, it's how other people view us as well. So if you keep pushing the narrative over and over again that this group of people are less than, we can treat them less than, and nothing's really going to happen. There's not going to be any major repercussions because the will stay intact. We're not going to dismantle the system of racism, white supremacy, because that's fundamentally, as much as we may get justice in certain areas, they're small, just the tip of the iceberg. The foundation is racism, white supremacy. And part of that process, I mean, there's many different factions to it, but part of that is if we keep perpetuating this narrative, all other groups, as well as us, will look at this group and see that they're not worthy, and they are less. And actually, while we're targeting that, and that's part of the course, they will also start looking at themselves as such. I've sat in meetings and heard Black people talk about Black people in derogatory manner when it comes to how they interact with police or authorities, or how our young people are interacting with them, because that is part of what has happened, that you're actually
that narrative as well.
Automatic installation in us now.
These are also the Black faces that are in the governments, you know, where they're thinking we have people representing us, you know, in places of power. No, they're these same Black people. They're just Black faces. Do you know what I mean? That still have that mentality, that look like they're speaking for us, but they're not speaking for us. They're not representing us whatsoever.
No. And this is, I 100% agree with that, Kelly. It's so true, because we do have a lot of people who are in high positions, but they're not there to carry the Black agenda. And our agenda with our community is suffering at the hands of generational trauma, as well as this ongoing trauma that we're experiencing, because how it affects our mind. Talking about the PTSD and things like that. I mean, we're overrepresented in mental health facilities. The Black male suffers the most in terms of mental health. If you're feeling devalued, dehumanized, and have no self-worth, and actually when you look at people who look like us, and you're like, you know what, I don't actually like them, you're saying that you don't like yourself. That's why it's so easy for our youth to be going out and doing what they're doing at the moment. And I don't just think this is just one factor of why the youth are doing what they're doing. There's many factors. The music they listen to, the things that they're into outside of the home life, all different things that are a factor. But I do think that when you actually sit, and if we came off this now and went on social media, we guarantee we would see loads of imagery of, you know, things that we don't want to necessarily see to do with our people. And it goes so far back that it's just a new wave of actually getting this narrative out that, you know what, Black people aren't worth anything. And we can continue to do that.
As much as we're sitting here talking about the trauma that we have to endure by happening upon these videos, there's elements of it that we buy into. So, you know, there's films that come out that we don't have to go and see, that we pay our money and go and see. You know what I mean? So there's elements of that as well. So again, going back to the terminology of you know, the addiction. You know, are we addicted to seeing ourselves like this, even when we don't have to? We now pay and subscribe, and you know what I mean, and we subscribe to these things. So we're talking about the youth being the effects on the youth. Look at the kind of films that are put out there where the youth are the target audience. What kind of narrative are they perpetuating? The producers of these things, very much a lot of the time the producers look like us, especially on a local style, when we're talking about local media production type things. You know what I mean? A lot of the time it's people like me and you that are producing these things, and yet still we're not telling any alternative narratives. Is that because we don't know any alternative ones, or are we so used to being entertained, or are we kind of so one-tracked in our thinking that those are the only type of narratives that excite us, or you know, that get us moving?
So do you agree that the film industry have a big part to play in desensitization, though? Then going back from all the Black films and all the slavery films that they've been playing,
when they do these films, it's what the people want to see. That's what they pay their money for. They don't pay much attention to other films. But where are the other films? How can you turn around and say that when there hasn't even been enough?
And that's the thing. Look how people responded to Black Panther, adult picnic in between. Not because the storyline was anything. It was because finally there is, you know, some positive Black.
It was all Black cast, Black directors.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not into Marvel. Nothing of us that into Marvel. But look how much of us ran out, put on our Africa, because it was finally so refreshing to see us in a different light, regardless of the storyline, regardless of. We just wanted to see ourselves finally, You know what I mean? So we do want other things. We are entertained and stimulated by other narratives, but where are they? You know what I mean? Going back to the Hollywood question. Hollywood is for entertainment, right? Hollywood's job is to entertain. So I think when we rely on Hollywood to, number one, have even any level of integrity to depict things accurately when they're making certain films like 12 Years a Slave, Django and stuff like this, you know, we're watching them emotionally because they're talking about our people. This is the depiction of something that happened to us. To the people behind the camera, to the director, it's a storyline, it's great content, it's great visual, you know what I mean? They're very disattached from it, but yet still, like I said, enough of us buy into this, enough of us line up to go and watch these films. And me personally, I don't want to see it because the storyline's always the same, you know what I mean? The storyline's always the same. So as much as, like I said, we're saying, you know, we're kind of like trying to sympathize with each other around watching these things, there's an element of us that subscribe to this and go out and volunteer ourselves to. And
so you'd agree it's the original trauma porn then, like films from
original.
So that's how it originally started.
Hollywood is the original, the original spearhead of it all. And like I said, their job is to entertain, sensualize, you know, create that wow factor. And that's what they do when they create films like, you know, I mentioned 12 Years a Slave and stuff like that.
But there are stories of Black film producers or directors actually bringing authentic scripts and stories to, you know, maybe the studios or whatever, and saying that this is actually something the people want, and then saying, well, we don't want this, or you're going to have to change certain elements to basically meet their needs. For them to be satisfied that this can actually be a film that can be made. And there are other films out there. I mean, there's now, you know, a wealth of Black horror films where it's all Black cast, you know what I mean? And we never really we haven't had those things for a long time. And since I would say like the Black exploitation era, where there was a lot of Black in the 70s, Black films just being churned out, I just think that we do have Black films, Black romance, all of those things, but they're very stereotypical. They're very caricature of actually some of the things that really do happen in our everyday lives, you know. And not every Black person is ghetto. Not every black person, do you know what I mean, has these stereotypical issues that they want to put. Not every Black man's a drug dealer. Do you know what I'm saying? That let's just get real with what actually is going on and tell a true story. So I do believe that the Black Panther film that came out was actually telling us, you know, it was an uplifting film, and the things that we had in there was quite uplifting. So I do agree with what Koshi's saying there as well about it being, you know, possibly it could have stemmed from back then. And they're only there they're not there to basically tell our story. They're really not. But them also continuously bringing out slave films, like we didn't have a life before slavery. And, you know, they're not gonna ever acknowledge anything happened pre-colonialism, pre-slavery. And that's the thing with them. It's down to us to say, you know what, we're not actually going to watch this film. I mean, I haven't watched a slave film. I can't even tell you the last slave film I probably watched, or any film that was, you know, in my eyes, derogatory, because we're worth more than that. Like, we know what the story is. We know what happened. You know, we can read books on it. We can gain our own information on it. So realistically, it's down to us as a people to say, you know what, we're the biggest consumers in the world. Without us, most of the Western kind of system, capitalism would probably exist properly without us. Do you know what I mean? So I just think somebody say, no, forget it. We're not going to actually buy into this at all.
So if you look at if you look at something like, everybody remember the film called Schindler's List? Yeah. Now Schindler's List is the only film. I'm not saying there ain't others produced, but it's the only one that I can think of that even made reference or was any kind of recollection in regards to the Jewish Holocaust. Now, it's almost like they would not dare try and commodify off of the pain of that community of people. So why is our pain is so easy to commodify? Why isn't that level of integrity or that compassion towards us as a community? You would never.
And that's where we're going wrong, because we're expecting a compassion and commodity. Is at some point we have to take accountability, and it is because we let them.
Exactly.
And let them.
We let the films run. We let it all happen.
And I mean, I even question the actors that take part in these. Like, I think, as an actor, when you're casted for something, isn't there? I was questioning myself. Isn't there a level of pride or integrity where you think I ain't playing that role, or I ain't taking that? Yeah, I know it can earn me a couple of mil, but it's like something has to be worth more than money. You know what I mean? There has to be that level of I've got pride of my race.
But when you're sold that being black isn't worth anything, like everything else will be high value. You get what you will sell your soul because you've been sold that your skin color in itself isn't worth.
Do you think they could get Jewish people to play depictions of like the Holocaust? Do you think there'll be like you think there'll be Jewish actors lined up? Because you would never do that. You would never disrespect and commodify on another culture's pain or trauma or like that.
You know what? I just want to say, I know that some of us, have been colonized and with trauma and we think we're worth nothing, but we had to sell out people from before then.
Right.
Before any of this happened, we had to sell out people. We're always going to have sell out people, and we just need to get rid of them.
Well, get rid of the sellouts first. As long as the non-sellouts outweigh the sellouts, then you know what I mean.
I think that we don't have community guidelines and rules. Like other communities have a set of unspoken rules, and I think with us, it's a free-for-all at the moment. So I think once there's an underlying respect and understanding that, we don't speak on this, or if this ever happens because I think it's so easy for these things to keep happening because they don't know their boundaries with us. We haven't set boundaries.
Anyway, exactly.
You know what? Actually, if you come and mess with one of my own, this is what's going to happen. And actually showing whatever that something is, I'm not specifying, but I'm saying this is what's going to happen. This is our boundary, and actually you're not gonna come and mess with that. And I think it's really interesting when we look at other communities. And I'm really careful to how I mention other communities, because I know certain communities have a lot of power on these platforms that we're speaking on right now. They do hesitate to get people shut down. We've seen it happen with a lot of Black people who are outspoken. In an instant, they're no longer existent just for speaking their mind. And a lot of times, maybe the way they expressed it wasn't the right way, but a lot of times that what they're saying is not untrue. So I'm really, really mindful about what I say right now. But I think the gist of what I'm trying to get at is we need to have a code of conduct within our community, and we need to say, you know what, actually, we're not going to buy. We understand that this brutality happened, but we're not buying into keep perpetuating it, and we're not going to be posting it. We're not going to be sharing it. If you've seen it once, that's enough. Let's move on now, and let's work out how we actually deal with this and address it, rather than constantly talking about it and not acting.
Right.
What can we do to support the families? What can we do to support, the community? And I think we need a code of conduct. We need to understand that not everybody needs to know our business. Things that happen within our community should stay within our community. And yes, if something wrong is happening and you feel that you need to video it at that time, and if we refer back to George Floyd, there were other people around who were trying to intervene and ensure that situation didn't escalate. Some of those people were at the trial and did speak out about how the police even dealt with them whilst that police officer had his foot on his neck. So if there is one person videoing and then you've got other people in the community actually trying to de-escalate the situation, I don't see anything wrong with that. Do we need to watch 9 minutes of the video constantly? No, we're still playing it to this day in the media. So I think it's us that have to take back the ownership and the reins and say, no more. That's it now. We're not
Be my point. Yeah.
Not participating for our own mental health, for our own selves, and form more of a community like what we used to have when our grandparents came over and those things. Do you know what I mean? So I think we need to take it back to basics and strip it back and say, we don't need it written down, but this is actually what happens. And if you mess with one of ours, whether it's in the UK, whether it's America, whether it's no matter where it is, this is what's going to happen. And they know exactly how that's going to turn out. And because they don't know, and they know that there's very little that we usually do other than protest, they continue.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to Black trauma porn on this topic of discussion?
I feel like we just need to make sure that we are telling our own stories. We're telling our own stories. I think that from our own perspective as well. You know what I mean? To counteract some of the narratives that we see. I think we need to continue like producing, not necessarily films like Black Panther, but, you know, films that show alternative narratives, films that show, like you said, you know, the hundreds of years before the period of enslavement. There's so much of us to tell, like, there's so much part of us to tell, to glorify. There's so much things that can be said about ourselves. You know, I think we need to just do ourselves some justice, but then also we need to support those people that have found ways of telling us our stories. You know, there's loads of like well, I won't say loads, but there's enough, you know, producers of content, you know, of films that, you know, show us in other lights, that show us in resistance, rebellion, show us as entrepreneurs, show us, you know, at our best, not just, you know, our pitfalls. So I think those are some of the things that we can focus on as well. You know what I mean? Showing some of the highlights rather than just focusing on like and pitfalls, and whether that's locally, you know what I mean? We need to kind of take the emphasis and take Hollywood off the pedestal that we do. You know what I mean? And it's not even about going to the cinema now, because no, we don't go to cinema, but even the things that you select on Netflix, all these things register, you know what I mean? So even if you're watching it in the comfort of your own home, you're still kind of buying into it. You know what I mean? You're still contributing to sales and numbers. So I think it's really about like, you know, putting up your own resistance and highlighting people that are telling our stories in a different way.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it's come to a point that Black people in general and the African diaspora need to become like an organizational body then, instead of still thinking as individuals and that's not my problem, until we come to that community base where we as a body, so sorry people, we as a body come together and be like, well, no, we don't want those type of films coming out. We are not allowing the sharing of our trauma anymore. We are not allowing our youth to be out there just to do what, till it comes to that, and us standing up as a people like what other community and races do. Because as soon as somebody drops a pin in those races, there's a protest going on, it's happening, they're out there. It could
be an example is that Stop Asian Hate. Hasn't there been a law passed?
Exactly. To stop the Asian hate, there's been laws passed.
And now a law's been passed like within a few weeks.
Yeah. So it's those type of things. Until us as Black people can get to that level of laws are being passed on our behalf now to say, well, this is going to be improved, that's going to be stopped, we're forever going to be going in this hamster wheel of traumatic infliction. So we need to come together, as we always keep saying as Black people. It never really gets done though, does it?
Exactly, because that was going to be the next thing I'm saying. We've been speaking about what Black people need to do from when I was a kid. So like moving forward, people who, any suggestions that, you know, what people can do individually until, you know, other people decide to say enough is enough, because how many meetings that I've been to, and, you know, we've talked about the same kind of thing, not Black trauma porn in the context that we're talking in, but how we're going to change the community, what changes we need to make. You know what I mean? You sit down and talk till thy kingdom come, and there's never, ever, ever any progression. So that's the next step. The move.
But that's, I feel that is part of what we've been discussing. When you actually have distrust and discord within the community, and a lot of this is just one element of how that can form, you're not, I mean, the want and the need is there. People want and need and know that we need to do something, and we've seen efforts across the community where it starts or it does happen, and even if people want to protest, that's all well and good. But I've also been in the same situation, Kitty, where I've attended things and it's like, okay, well, how's this going to move forward? And I do think a lot of it is there's a lot of distrust, and that we're not in unison, we're not in line. And like I said, stripping it back and actually going back to basics and just starting with like self and understanding actually you have to value self. You have to then, because generational trauma is a real thing. And I think a lot of what we're seeing now is that. So I think that when you start with I've got to work on me, and then, if you've got children and in your household, those are the immediate things that need to be done first. Practicing mindfulness and those type of things. Whether you've got
I do think people do that already. So, like, for example, that's why I feel like that's one of the elements why we don't have the village mentality anymore, because people have started with, you know what, I'm going to take it back to me. I'm going to take it back to what happens within my home. And as long as I'm good and as long as my kids are good, they stop caring about what the neighbors are doing.
If you're
across the street.
But going back to my point, and if people are just doing that without thinking on a community basis, because personally, if I'm not right, then nobody else around me is going to be right, and I can't benefit my community. So I have to start with self to be able to benefit, to be able to add value to our community. So if people are just thinking, you know what, I'm just going to strip it back and I'm going to start with myself and I'm just going to start meditating and doing all these different things and African spirituality and blah, 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 and that's going to fix everything and the community is going to be okay, then that's just not how it's going to work. The thing is, you can continue to do things, but you have to understand that if you want things to improve within your community, yes, you have to be right. But then also you have to give aspects of yourself once you're in a state, it's called selflessness. So just because you're taking yourself out for a moment and actually looking within, you can then go without once you're right. So I just think that I think there is an element of that where people think, well, they disregard everything else because that sense of community isn't there anymore. So it's not my problem, it's somebody else's issue. Right. Well, actually, no, because your child might be coming up and there's a 16, 17-year-old that's going through something right now that your child might be affected by later on down the road when they reach that age if we don't address it. So I do think it's important that as much as we would like to sit and think, oh, it's an individualistic kind of situation, it's not, because what we do now is to add benefit to all of us.
Okay. Just to add that, to give an example with Z, just making reference to the More Than a Woman Facebook page, go and follow it. Z, you put up a post the other day as a prime example of the lady who did the BLM, who started the BLM movement, and the house that she bought and how much money it cost. And I think most people was bothered about not the fact of how much she bought the house for, but it was the location of where she chose to buy the house. Like there was lots of engagement under that post talking about how it was wrong, what she should have done, what she should have done with her money, or where she should have moved to, and whatever. And the bottom line is, whether it is right or wrong, when I came and made my post the next day in reference to your post and talked about, then so what are you doing like to help the community?
Crickets.
crickets, not even a butterfly wings.
Tumbleweed.
We didn't even hear butterfly wings that, you know, move elegantly and silently. We didn't hear anything.
Right.
We heard
Right.
So people like to complain or say what people should or shouldn't be doing, but whether a person's messed up or slipped up or whether we agree or not, they've tried something. And it's better to try something and it failed rather than nothing at all, because then at least the next person can be like, you know what, that's a good idea, but maybe where it failed, it could have been just one step where it failed. Everything else would have been perfect, but there could have just been one element that needed to be adapted. So we can try it again, but just change this and then see how far we get from there. Because at the end of the day, most of us, this is new to all of us. So, then people are waiting for people to do something, and then when a person does something, you just judge them and tear them down without trying anything yourself.
But then my question would be, do you think, and this is to everybody, do you think that if we go back to the beginning of the conversation, that is actually people being addicted and so used to having these negative emotions and feelings attached to imagery and everything else that's being, the narrative that's being perpetuated about us ourselves, so that we then start to feed into that? Do you think
and also back to, I agree, it's definitely linked to that, and also linked to what I said is, are you even actually aware of the emotion? Because
I don't think people are.
Some people feel left out. Some people feel like, oh, if I don't share this right now, am I even in with the in? It's as simple as that. Sometimes it's not even about your emotions. It's just that if I don't share this, am I in with the crowd? Am I in with the Joneses?
Want to be the first, like,
people don't send me no videos, because there was a period where there was just loads of videos. I think like 2 years ago, there was a period where there was back-to-back videos of different things that was going on, and if I opened one and it was something to do with something happening to us, I would get so vexed. I started muting people. You know, people, you know, them people that, you know, that if you open the video, it's going to be some kind of traumatic drama, something that you just don't want to see. And they all started, people don't even send me videos no more.
I used to put random messages,
videos, whether it's a joke or whatever, because I'm not ready to open it to see what it's about.
And you're at that level, that shows a level. That shows a level that you're at with yourself. You're at that level where you can discern from maybe even the person that's sending you the video. Yeah, I'm not even ready to look at that. But there's a lot of people that are weak to technology and the system that naturally just gravitate to, I've got to open it, I've got to watch it, and I've got to send it on. Do you see what I'm saying? So I feel like it's a level of consciousness that you've now built in yourself that you can discern for yourself that this ain't going to be good for my mental health. This ain't going to be good for my well-being if I even watch this. A lot of people have to open it first to make that discernment. Oh no. Do you get what I mean? So until
it's self-awareness. It's actually
self-awareness.
It's actually saying, you know what, I need to check myself, and I need to check myself how I feel when. How does this make? It's a questioning.
How's it make me feel? Right.
How does this make me feel when I open this? If I keep watching this or viewing these images, how does that actually make me feel? And sometimes I don't even, the amount of stuff that I have to delete anyway in pictures and stuff. But I just think it does get too much, and even the most aware person can still be drawn into, oh no, I've got to share it because it's information. I've got to let people know, because it's just a thing that they feel that they have to do. But yeah, I do think that there's an element of self-awareness that we have to implement in ourselves for our own mind to protect our mind.
I mean, like I said, I do stuff, and it will still happen now. I'll just put up statuses on my WhatsApp. Please don't send me anything with us getting killed. Oh, I put stuff on just like randomly, you know what I mean? 'Cause especially if I know that there's something circulating or I'm hearing, you know what I mean? And thankfully, not everybody, but the majority of people around me now, they know not to send me stuff, or they'll be like, have you seen, or do you want to see? You know what I mean? So thankfully, people that, like I said, that know me, kind of know my disposition, know that don't just send that straight to a phone, or, you know what I mean? They will ask, or they will ask me if I've seen it already. So I'm really grateful for that. Well, like I said, I do have to send that reminder sometimes. Like I said, random messages on my WhatsApp, on my Facebook, please don't send me that. Or I know what's out there, I don't want to see it. And because people can't assume, you know what I mean? As much as, you know, you think people know that, no, why would Kush want to see a black person getting killed or something like that? Sometimes you have to state the obvious, you know what I mean? And doing little things like that, I find has helped over time, you know what I mean? Like,
and that was going to bring me back to the last question anyways, and what ways and solutions can we implement instead of trauma porn? How can we help our youth and community deal with ongoing underlying issues, which we've kind of covered just a while ago? Because as Kush said, she puts out a disclaimer via her WhatsApp to her contacts to don't send them things my way. So there are different ways that you can, you know, definitely not be in the in crowd of sharing trauma porn or even watching it. It's up to yourself, isn't it? As we're saying, it's a self-awareness thing first. If you really want to go put yourself through that as an individual, and then put your community through that as a community. So it's those questions we need to ask ourselves as well, moving forward. So anything else anybody wants to put towards the table? Because I think we're coming to a close soon.
Just throwing something a bit out there randomly, like before there was the, you know, oh my God, sorry. Before there was the the social media thing, like there's an element of us that have kind of always done this within our own community. And as for entertainment, if we look at things like comedy shows and comedians and the things that they say, but maybe they say it in a jokey way, but it's actually not funny, but we laugh.
To address that trauma. Almost, exactly. Yeah.
So they said it, we laugh, we know it's going on, we've gone home. More time, we don't really think deeply. That's another way where we've just been talking about, instead of it being on social media, we've actually gone to shows to laugh about ourselves going through certain kinds of trauma.
Yeah.
But is that a remedy? I mean, I watched a documentary about comedians talking about their responsibility to educate through laughter. So they said it's a more palatable way for people to receive information, especially they're talking about to white people. You know what I mean? Okay. Like,
what I would say to that, what's ever changed within the workplace or wherever when they've kikied at one of the jokes, what the comedian them told them?
It's true. That's
nothing.
That's what I mean.
I can understand that we maybe trying different ways, but nothing never changed from it. We're the best at telling jokes. No one is more funnier than us telling jokes. You know.
But do we need to start holding our comedians accountable now as well? Because as we said, we pay our money, we'll sit there, we'll listen, we'll laugh, we'll joke, and it's about our own brothers and sisters. Do we need to start holding certain people in positions like comedians accountable for, even though they use it as a way of communication or getting their point across? We've got to start putting
your friends, your parents, your family, everyone needs to be held accountable.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Do we need to start really now holding people accountable and putting bans to certain things and saying, no,
what does that look like? And what does holding somebody accountable look like? Is it this? I know we use this term cancelling people. Like, do we start cancelling people? Like, what does that holding somebody accountable?
I think there's levels to it, because I actually believe that if it's damaging to the community, then that's something that we need to address. Do you know what I mean? If it's something where it's just light-hearted and whatever, but I think we all should be holding ourselves accountable because none of us are perfect. Nobody's perfect, and nobody should be, not one person or any one person should be carrying the weight of the whole community. We all are in this together. I do genuinely think, however, that people in the limelight and in the forefront have a responsibility when they're speaking on community issues, that they also don't feed into these negative narratives. I mean, there was I don't even know who she is, some American woman, black woman. I think she's a politician, but she talks on these shows. And there was a clip that I watched, which was actually by a comedian, and he posted it on social media, and she was actually literally had the total opposite mindset of what happened to George Floyd, speaking about his criminal conviction, speaking about the fact that he was asked to be placed down on the floor, and saying that, the reason why there's now a court case, or, you know, this verdict has happened, is because of the mob mentality in society. Now, this is a Black woman, and that's actually sitting with white men having this conversation, which is basically saying George Floyd deserved what happened to him because he's an ex-con, and actually he has to be placed on the ground, which is no justification for anybody to be murdered like that anyway. But I just sat there and thought to myself, well, one, you're sitting around white people having this conversation openly, so they're going to think, because you're a voice for the people, so to speak, because you're in a position of power, they're going to think, oh, that's okay, because that's how probably the majority of them think, because she wouldn't be talking like that anyway. So I think
the more educated Black ones, that's how they think, and the ones who don't agree, they're just, you know.
Exactly. So therefore, I think that there is a responsibility when you're in the limelight or have a position of power, or, you know, entertain or whatever, to be very, very careful on what you say. And that's why when people start having an uproar on some celebrities that don't speak on issues, but are actually doing charitable work and things behind the scenes for the community, I am actually like, just leave them alone, because better that they don't speak and do what they're doing in the background than they speak and mess the whole thing up. And it could be at detriment to what we want to do for our community. So I think we just have to be mindful when we're saying, well, do we hold these people accountable? No one's perfect. People mess up. People say things, you know.
She's crashed again. While she's gone off, do we have any comments from the audience at all?
Yes.
Do you see any comments?
Looking on YouTube, Abby Shaw was saying the entertainment is out there. I think she's thinking like the positive entertainment is out there, but there isn't enough hype around it for the publicity. So things like that are short-lived. It's a shame. Talking about Blue Story, for example. And it's funny that we mentioned Blue Story, because when Blue Story actually came to Birmingham, and there was a fight at the cinema at Star City, and I don't know if everybody remembers, like, the fight had nothing to do with the movie. There was, I think Ice Age was premiering the day, Blue Story and some other films, and they shut down Blue Story because there was a fight there, that association with violence and Black people was automatically made, and they shut down the film. I was actually interviewed on Channel 4 in regards to that. You know what I mean?
It weren't even Black people as well that was fighting outside.
Exactly.
It weren't even Black people fighting.
It wasn't even Black people. And one of the questions that asked the reporter was,
it was Asians, wasn't it?
Yeah. One of the questions that asked the reporter was, are they going to did they cancel Ice Age? I'm sure it was Ice Age or Frozen or something that was out.
Frozen. It was Frozen.
And I can remember thinking it was such a like opposite, you know, such a contrasting film. I was like, so why did they pick this film, you know, to shut down and they didn't cancel the others? So I definitely agree with that comment that when films do come out about, you know, showing a different narrative, you know, I think Black Panther was definitely an exception to the rule, but there generally isn't enough hype around that.
Definitely. Is there any more comments from our audience members? Thank you, Abby, for that comment as well. Thank you very much.
And also Abby disagrees that stop sharing videos for entertainment, because our trauma is not entertainment at all. Definitely. And we could use play days and dramas that highlight our history, and that would be more engaging. I definitely agree with that. Like, find alternative ways to tell our story, especially if it's for children. You know, children are so innovative right now. There's so much different ways. You know, you got animation, you got podcasts. You know, there's so many different ways now that we can
quickly interject though. Do you remember when Beyonce did the Black is King video, and she tried to showcase all the different ancestries, that is, you know, she was trying to show all the different things about Black people, and then it was us that said that she was demonic and worshipping the devil.
Right.
So so when we do have positive things, you know, or different things, it's also like, okay, then how are we gonna, because we're so used to seeing the negative, even when we see something good or something that we're not used to, we tear it down.
Right.
But they also said that he was culturally appropriating as well. That was another comment.
Yeah.
Well, this was a comment made by African. And I mean, if your lineage is indigenous, whether you're African or indigenous to the land that you belong, and you're you know, black or brown, then to me that you know, obviously they did their research and they know what, you know, that it was very on point in terms of even down to what she was wearing and the way she did her hair and those things. But people had stuff to complain about that, and that's good. To me, that was something positive, even to show the children. Exactly. And I think one thing that we definitely have to go, and when I spoke earlier about self-care and mindfulness and going back to basics, is definitely trying to find those programs, films, and those type of things that give those positive messages and images, even if it might be in music or whatever, so that you know, not only ourselves but the children can listen to them as well and access that. The thing is, we just have to stop when a black person from a totally different place to where wherever the origin of what it is that the message that they're trying to get out comes from, is trying to do something positive. We need to just stop trying to, you know, put them down.
Yeah. All right, ladies, sorry to cut you there. Is there any more comments from the audience at all, Kosh?
And we've got some comments from Facebook. I do hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Apologies from that. Is it Uche Oniebo? So this is a great and very timely discussion. I personally do not watch any of these videos if I can help it. I haven't even seen the George Floyd murder. I am grateful it was recorded and helped bring that man to justice, but I don't need to fill my soul with that negativity to be aware of the injustice that's going on in the world. You know, in all cases, I've come away from them feeling helpless and disabled. I definitely concur with that. That feeling of helplessness, like you're standing there and it's almost like you wish you was in that video and you think what you would have done if you was there. And then again,
depleted, you feel angry. Change your mood for the day, change your household energy for the day. It
I'm with him. I still haven't watched the video to this day.
It can impact your whole aura, like definitely. I agree. Yeah. You have to be very mindful.
Listening to that made me just remember the last video that I actually watched of, you know, brutality was the Fidel is it Castile?
Oh,
that's the last time that I ever watched. Now I've just come to think about, as I was listening to that comment, and the feeling and the emotion that I had within that, I promised myself I will never sit and watch, because that was on Facebook, wasn't it? And it was like a live video.
Yeah, it was a live stream.
And I just remember thinking how just all the, like, the child in the back and all the different things that was going on, and then
that one was particularly
how fast.
I never watched that one either.
Well, what about the recent one with the stabbing? What about the recent one with the stabbing and the guys are chasing the guy and the little girl's outside on her roller skates and he's bounced her whilst he's trying to run from the knives and he gets stabbed up? That's a very recent one that's been going around as well.
Is that over here?
Yeah, that was, I don't know if it was London.
Yeah.
We have another comment, sorry.
Okay.
Mr. S, this is on YouTube. Mr. S says there's a cartoon in production now called Black Sands that looks positive. Apparently it is on YouTube at the moment. They've just secured funding. So let's try and follow that pilot.
Like that. What's that? Black Sands?
Black Sands. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. S, for that.
Definitely we'll tune into that and try and get that promoted as much as we can.
Definitely.
On Facebook as well.
Yeah, so definitely.
If any of our audience has knows of any productions out there, any positive productions, or anything you see on YouTube, please do let us know. Send it onto our page, you know, send links for it, because we're all about promoting people that tell our own story, you know, in a positive way. You know, but we don't know you're out there, we can't promote you. So definitely, you know, send that information here. And we'll
also, if anybody's running, I think it's a really good thing to address like the PTSD, the emotional side of things. If anybody in the community has any programs that they're running, whether that be for the youth or for adults, that may be to do with meditation, maybe to do with yoga, or even African spirituality, and just getting people to really reconnect with self. If there's anything like that, please share it with us and we will promote it as well.
Well, I've got one coming up myself through Awareness Through Fashion UK. I'm doing a 6-week program geared to the youths and mental health and well-being. So I'll put that out and circulate that through the group and stuff like that. So
I think it would be really amazing, especially for young children. And we've got to think about even the younger ones from, you know,
from 4 years old up, mate. That's
anything,
definitely.
Things like meditation and getting them to just recenter themselves, and preparation for schooling and things like that. So anything that we have where it can deal with mental health and emotional things, or spirituality, I think it would be really positive.
Personally, I know that Gift Therapy, they're based in Birmingham. They do a lot of African-centered healing circles and create very safe spaces for for Black people. So that's for men, women, and children. So if you look on their website, that's Patty Gift Therapy. It's PATTIGIFT. So Patty Gift Therapy.
We'll drop that in the group as well.
Yeah, there's a whole range of support circles and different initiatives that they have there for our community as well. So I do definitely encourage that. I have engaged with them myself as well. So I do definitely encourage the use of that service.
All right. Well, we're going to end it there, ladies. Thank you very much for joining us today, audience members. If you do have any questions or you do have any solutions that we can implement, please give us a message, direct message on the More Than a Woman podcast page. Or if you know us individually, we're more than happy to help as well. Ladies, I'm going to sign out for today. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. And please continue to follow us on More Than a Woman. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.